Okay. So, Sharon, it's nice to see you. I've not met you before, but and Tanya, I haven't met you either, but now I know you both. And as you probably know, when we actually had this event back in 2019, Donna Prince and Pat, I forget Pat's last name, actually participated in the weekend. They were coaches for the weekend. So
My kids twins, and they both went that time too.
Yeah. Okay, great. Perfect. Did they have a good time?
Yeah, they did. They had a great time.
Yeah. I've never met a kid who didn't at RYLA. They always liked it. All right, so I'm going to go right to a PowerPoint I prepared for this. I'm going to put the share screen on here. Let's see here. Okay, here you go. And I'm going to kind of give this the way I do it when I'm standing in front of the clubs talking to them. Okay, so the first thing I always ask people to look at is the name here. If you go to Rotary literature, you're not going to find this name. You're going to find it stands for RYLA Youth Leadership Awards. And that is the way RYLA started out back in the 1950s in Australia when they first had RYLA. And that's not what we call, and that is what we called it all the while we were doing it here in our district since about 1961 or so, when we had it down at the Brevard Music Camp. It was called RYLA Youth Leadership Awards. When we switched to this 3-day format or long weekend format in 2019, we tweaked the name to call it RYLA Youth Leadership Academy, because we believe that's more reflective of what we do at RYLA and what it's for. And I might mention that we are not the only district that does this by any means. Quite a few districts have made that same tweak to the name. So for RYLA 2022, we plan to have a non-socially distant event. And if you, and I know you do, Tanya, know anything about RYLA, you will know that it's about the polar opposite of social distancing. There's a lot of very close activity, a lot of team activities that you really couldn't do if you had to be socially distant. So at the moment, we're full speed ahead, assuming that we're going to be able to do a non-socially distant one. It's going to be at the same time as it was in 2019, which was the last weekend in March. This weekend, now those dates are the 24th to the 27th. It's going to be the same cost per student, which is $300. It's going to be at the same location, the Blue Ridge Assembly. And what we're looking for is more kids. When we did this in 2019, we had 87 kids present at RYLA. When we were ready to go in 2020, and we had to pull the plug about 3 weeks in advance of RYLA, we had 108 kids signed up. So this year, I'd like to see us hit 150. I don't think there's any reason why we can't do that, but that's kind of the goal we set for this year. So what do we do at RYLA? The goals of the RYLA program are to do three things. Teach leadership skills and techniques. And when I talk leadership in this context, I always advise people to think broadly about what leadership is. That this is not just for kids that are going to be the student council president or the FFA president, or are going to lead a team of people in their workplace. The kind of skills we are going to teach there are general leadership skills that are going to make any kid that attends, a better classmate, a better follower, a better community member, better able to contribute and influence people in whatever they do. So you think broadly about who we're after here and what we're trying to convey to them. The other thing we try to do is build confidence. There's a lot of kids that have all kinds of capabilities that don't know it. So in some of our exercises, we try to give them confidence that they can do a lot of things they didn't think they could do. Part of the goal of RYLA is to let these kids start forming a network. After all, when they're at RYLA, they're going to be with 125 or so kids that are like-minded, that all have service in mind and have leadership in mind. And so we would like these kids to have a chance to start forming friendships with other kids in the area. And mostly when you talk to people that have been to RYLA, and I'm including in that even some Rotarians that went to RYLA 20 years ago, and you talk to them, they're still in contact with the people they met at RYLA. They do form lasting relationships. And the final thing we try to cover there is Rotary awareness. Now, we're all a little bit concerned about the long-term survivability of our organization. So one of the ways that you can help guarantee survival is to fill the pipeline with future Rotarians, people that understand what Rotary is and what our values are, and will recognize Rotary kind of functions like Interact and Rotaract when they move out of high school. So what do we do at RYLA? Well, our approach to teaching is primarily experiential. And what we mean by that is we try to teach the kids by having them experience activities from which they can take leadership lessons. And that's done as to the greatest extent that we can. We try to limit the amount of time kids spend sitting in an auditorium, listening to somebody dispense wisdom. To be sure, we do some of that. We have some professional speakers that are going to cover certain areas of leadership, but we try to keep that to a minimum. The first thing that'll happen to a kid that you send to RYLA is that we're going to put them in a small team. Small teams are going to be 8 to 12 kids, and they will be assigned when they walk through the door, and they will stay with that same group of people all the while they're there for the whole weekend. They'll eat dinner with them. They'll do all the activities with them. They will sit with them at the whatever sessions we do have that are auditorium-like sessions. And each small team is to be led by a Rotarian coach. Now, the Rotarian coach is critical to this whole process. The Rotarian coach has a number of responsibilities. One of the things they try to do is create a sense of family and trust in their small teams. They try to create an atmosphere where the kids are not afraid to say anything because they don't feel like they're going to be judged, or they don't feel like the information that they're talking about is going to leave the little team. That's part of the Rotarian's job. And when you get them to that point where they have that kind of trust, then they become very forthcoming about what they think, what they learn, what they believe their capabilities are, and all of those kind of things. And after each of the activities that we're trying to teach them a lesson, the small team gets together someplace and is debriefed by the Rotarian coach. And so that's the other important factor. And what they try to do is let the kids tell them what they learned from the activity. And if they're not, getting the lessons that are supposed to be there, then the coach's job is to kind of direct them to ferret out those lessons from their experiences. So a critical point of this whole exercise. And before I end the slideshow here tonight, I'm going to ask you to help us find some Rotarian coaches, but because again, they are critical to everything. We learned that you got to keep the kids busy. Idle hands, that old saying. So we do keep them busy. I'll show you a snapshot of an agenda that will show that. We learned the hard way to have enough food for the kids. Those teenagers can eat a lot of food. Fortunately for us, there's an Ingles store about 2 miles down the road from our venues. So we were burning up the road getting snacks for the kids for those 3 days. And of course, time to socialize and form relationships is a part of the mission as well. So let me talk about the facilities. It's YMCA's Blue Ridge Assembly in Black Mountain. Have any of you been there before? That's really, yeah. But Rotary actually does quite a bit of stuff over there, particularly in the youth exchange arena. They have a lot of meetings over there. So it's a over 100-year-old retreat and conference center run by the YMCA. That building that you see in the back in that picture in the upper right is called Eureka Hall. That is the place where all the kids that go to RYLA will stay in that building. And there's a great big lobby on the first floor of that building. And that's the place where a lot of the activities, the non-outdoor activities, will occur. So although the building itself is 100 years old, as is the retreat center, it's been modernized. So, you know, a lot of times RYLA is referred to as a camp. Well, that's a bit of a stretch. They'll be sleeping in dorm rooms. There'll be 4 kids to a dorm room. There'll be bunk beds in the dorm room. The bunk beds will have sheets and linens and all that kind of stuff. And laundry will be done for them once while they're there. Each of the dorm rooms will have its own bathroom. So, you know, it's a pretty nice facility. The building's heated and air conditioned, so it's comfortable. Blue Ridge Assembly has extensive grounds, and our activity venues are scattered around the grounds. So there's a lot of walking involved in getting to those venues. So what you see in the bottom right corner is one of those activity areas. And what you're looking at, there's a balance platform. And what you see there is one of the small teams trying to figure out the best way to get all their kids up on that platform without teeter-tottering. Now, you know, if you think about what it takes to do that, you'll quickly recognize that you can't have 8 of these student leaders yelling out directions all the time. And so what you will find that happens is that a leader will emerge out of that group. And it won't be assigned by the Rotarian coach. They will just emerge. And that will be one of those lessons that leaders learn, that sometimes it's time to follow. Sometimes it's time to lead. You know, sometimes it's time to talk. Sometimes it's time to listen. So that's kind of the takeaway from this particular exercise. The other facility you see in the lower left-hand corner there is the climbing tower at Blue Ridge Assembly. And that thing's a lot taller than it might look to you. And all the kids are given a chance to try to climb to the top. And I'd say 95% of them want to give it a try. And of that 95%, there's probably 80% that will say, I'm never going to make it, never can get to the top. But when the day is done, almost all of those kids will have climbed all the way to the top and made it onto that platform at the top. And then it's an experience they won't forget. And it is a confidence builder. It's one of those things that will teach them, I can do things I didn't think I was capable of doing. So like I said, they walk to all venues, and the kids will complain about all that walking. And so will the Rotarian coaches, by the way. And one of the things I tell people, if you're involved in the transportation of the kids to and from RYLA, and you're taking them home and you expect they're going to tell you all about what happened, forget about it. They're going to go to sleep in your car is what they're going to do. They'll be worn out. So the goals for our 2022 RYLA program is expand and improve upon what we did in 2019. That was a pretty successful program, but it was our first program. And we learned quite a bit from that program about things that needed to be changed and things we wanted to be changed, and how the whole weekend flows, and making sure that all the things we do could be tied back to leadership lessons. And so we've expanded and improved that program for 2022. We want to encourage more club support for 2022. In 2019, when we actually had one of these things, we had 32 out of 48 clubs sent kids to RYLA. And my opinion is that this is such a fantastic deal for kids in our district that all the clubs ought to send a kid or two along. And since it only costs $300, and since this RYLA experience is capable of changing the trajectory of a kid's life, I think it's a great way to spend money. And so I'm encouraging all the clubs to send somebody. And if you sent people last year, send some more this year. And I mean, try to encourage some diversity in Rotarian coaches. And what that really means is it would be nice to have some coaches younger than people like me. You know, I'm a 75-year-old man. I think we have a lot of people in Rotary who can identify better with teenagers than what I can at this point. So we're gonna have probably a mix of coaches. So anybody that's interested in being a coach I want them to get their name to me, and as the point of contacts are trying to recruit some coaches for us, I want them to be aware that we would like to lower the age of those coaches a little bit. We want to expand the reach of recruiting. I don't know how y'all recruit in your club there in Asheville, but what a lot of clubs do is they go to their Interact club if they have one, and they explain the goals of RYLA, and they ask for a show of hands, and they get it, and they sign those kids up. And that is perfectly okay. That's fine. Do as much of that as you possibly can do. But this program also will have as much or more meaning for those kids in the schools that have leadership potential but haven't had the opportunity to show it yet. And if you go to an administrator in your high school or a counselor and tell them you're looking for that kind of kid that has potential but hadn't really been in a position to show it, your counselor will knows who those kids are. You'll get 3 or 4 names in about a minute. They know who those kids are. So I'm trying to encourage clubs to seek out some of those kids as well. And along with that, we're trying to increase our diversity of RYLA students as well. I think we can do a better job of that than we have done. Finally, for 2022, we want to develop some better social media presence and a website. If you were to go to the internet and dial up RYLA, you're going to see a lot of independent websites from a lot of districts that are talking specifically about what their RYLA is all about. And on those websites, you will find a bunch of marketing material. Currently, all of the material that we have for both the students and Rotarians who are involved with RYLA is all in folders on the homepage of the district website. And Tanya, this is one of the things I'll talk quite a bit about on Monday when we talk about what the process is for getting kids into RYLA. So if you know somebody who is a videographer, somebody that dying to write another website and they're good at it, let us know about that. That's something we got to improve on this year. So how can your club help? Well, recruit us some young people. That's the main thing. You know, you can find them at your high schools, early colleges, private schools, home schools. We've gotten some great kids out of home schools before. Church groups, and explain your club's reach. And what I mean by that is if you've been going just to RYLA, consider expanding beyond RYLA. Consider going after some of those other kids that are out there that would benefit from this program. If you go to your administrators and you explain the goals of RYLA and you show them what our agenda looks like, and I'm going to give you a quick look at it right there, and they get a chance to, I don't expect y'all to be able to read this, maybe you can, but that wasn't the idea. The idea was to show you that for each day, we have all the time blocked out. And these kids are going to be busy. And what each one of those lines represents is a leadership development activity. And one of the things you can see from this chart, there's colors on here, is the red ones, like for instance, the very first one and the second one and a couple other ones, those are the only time we expect to have kids sitting down being talked to. The rest of this time are activities, they're going to be up and about doing something, which I mentioned earlier is one of our goals. So what I found is you go to high school, explain this to the administrators, show them the schedule, they will recognize the value of this to their kids, and they will be forthcoming with names for you. And they will agree that it's worth missing one day of school to get a kid to this event. Okay, I'm asking clubs to budget more participation than they did last time. If you sent 2, send 4 this time. The venue can accommodate a whole lot more than we're likely to have. So we haven't come even close to taxing that venue yet.
Mike, just so you know, our club we have 5 scholarships set aside, but we can do up to 10. So we're trying to go for 10.
Fantastic. That'd be great.
Yeah.
You got competition. The Franklin Club says they're sending 10 too. So my club, we're sending 8 this year. So, and so I don't know who your incoming president is, but here's something you can tell him on how to get that cost down to $150 a kid. It is not generally known or understood that scholarships to RYLA are fair game for a district grant. So in next April and May, when you're working on your grants for your incoming president's year, think about that. And if you've got some district grant money you don't know how to use, put together a RYLA scholarship, and that'll be good. Appoint a RYLA point of contact. You've already done that. Find a Rotarian coach or 2. I talked about that a little bit ago. And this last thing I want to talk about is student advisory group. And here's what that is. Over the longer term, and we thought we were going to be able to do it in 2020, our goal is to pick a couple of kids that were at RYLA the previous year and have them help us plan the next year's session and help lead that session. So what happened is the last time we actually had any kids at RYLA was 2019. And all those kids have aged out of high school. So we don't have those kids anymore. So what we are looking to do to make up for that is recruit a group of students for the advisory group that will be active from November to December and possibly have a role in the ongoing execution of RYLA in March. And we're trying to put this group together out of the one group I know that we have in high schools, and we have clubs with contacts, and that's the Interact Club. So rather than go out to the general population to try to explain this need, what we have asked is for Rotary clubs that have an Interact Club to identify a person that can be on the student advisory group, and will be working in the months of November and December to help plan RYLA. And that work is likely to be all Zoom work. So we'll put these, however many kids we get. We have 38 Interact clubs in the district, and I'm sure we won't get one from each Interact club. But hopefully we'll get 10, 12 or so kids, maybe more. At the moment, until we see how that all shakes out, we're limiting the number of kids a club can put forward to 1 per Interact club. Or we are allowing some cases where clubs share an Interact club. We will allow 1 from each of the sponsor clubs. So, and we need those guys to be identified very quickly. I want to have this group put together by the end of October so that we can start working in early October, and we can get all their input and time to incorporate it into the program, which is 3 months into the new year.
Mike, can I ask you a question about that?
Yeah.
I know you're looking for 1 person from each Interact, and we've identified 1 in ours, but I mentioned that my 2 kids went in 2019. They're both in college now, so obviously they've aged out of the school, but is there any benefit to having them like have input on those Zoom meetings, even though they're not local anymore?
That's a good question. I'll discuss that with with our planning team, but the idea would be you got some kids that maybe we can get access to that have experience
Mhm.
that
They
can
have some,
bring
they
that to
probably
the
have some
table.
feedback.
Yeah, that might be a really good idea. Thanks for bringing that up. I'll check into that and I'll let you know. Have you got some of those kids?
Well, my kids went, and I know they still are in touch with some of the kids they met with. So they probably have some kids that could, and if it's all over Zoom, they obviously can jump on a call and give some
Yeah.
feedback, maybe one of the meetings or
Yeah.
more, but it's helpful to have some kids that went and give them their feedback.
That's a really good idea.
Yeah.
All right. So here's the timeline for RYLA 2022. We pretty much got point of contacts, I think, from all the clubs that are giving me one. I've got them. The other clubs, their president by default becomes that person. Recruiting it needs to begin right away, and that's one of the things, Tanya, I covered in the POC meeting I had today, and we'll cover again on Monday. January and February, when we have a better idea of what we're going to have in terms of the numbers of kids. I can already tell you what we're going to have in terms of the gender split, because it's always the same. It's 2/3, 1/3, 2/3 women, 1/3 men. But we need to know how many people we're going to have, so we know how many coaches that we need to have. And we'll select the coaches in January and February. The deadline for applications is going to be February 28th. And Tanya, you already told me you're coming to the Monday meeting. It's important that you do, because we've tightened up our application process considerably. And you need to know what you need to do to make that happen properly. And so then RYLA is the last weekend of March. March 24th to 27th. I will tell you this, that late March weather can be kind of iffy still, but I can tell you that the last 2 years, when we were not able to have RYLA, I can tell you the weather was perfect those 2 years. And so hopefully we'll get lucky and get another perfect year, and we won't have, sleet blowing sideways at us. So that's what I had to say about RYLA. Just the idea to give everybody know what it is we do. If you have any questions, let me know.
I have to make one more comment. My daughter, I was laughing about you saying how nice the accommodations were, because when we pulled up, I guess we had been calling it a camp the whole time. So she thought she was thinking about, and she pulled up, she was like, oh my God, that's where we're staying. Oh, this is going to be a great weekend. Because she thought she was going to camp, and she doesn't like camping. And she was like, I guess I kept calling it RYLA camp. So she was so excited when she saw that beautiful building, and that it was all dorm rooms, and it was fabulous just because of that.
That's great.
It was great. It was funny.
And so
maybe that's why so many girls go.
Yeah, it was really funny. She was like, oh my God, I'm so happy I'm not camping.
Yeah, well, that would be another thing I probably should emphasize in this presentation is, see what you can do about getting some more boys to go. It's a good deal for boys as well. So, but that's just kind of the way it always seems to work out.
Interesting.
Do you have a flyer or something to use for recruiting?
We do. And Tanya's going to learn all about that on Monday when she attends the POC event. It's all posted. If you want to go look at it, you can go right today and look at it. It's out on, if you know how to get to the district homepage, you'll see a RYLA tab on the left. And when you hit that tab, you're going to see 2 files come up. One of them says RYLA for Rotarians, and one of them says RYLA for students. And the one for the students has basically a marketing brochure to use with Interact Kids. The application is out there, and some information we put together to pass along to parents. So, parents are concerned that they're sending their kid off to a safe environment. So we put some documentation for that. And on the other, if you go to RYLA for Rotarians, there's scads of information out there that talk about the role of the Rotarian coach, how you recruit those guys, and what the application process is. And a whole bunch of information. And if there's something out there that you think you need and it's not, call me and I'll get it out there. That's what
Okay.
that tab is for.
Okay. And then my next question for the coaches, does the coach have to be there the entire time, or do you have a staggered, like you need people?
No,
in
they
one
have to
group?
be, the nature of what the coaches do is to form that family unit with the team. So they have to be there all 3 days. That's it.
Okay.
A full commitment for that.
Hey,
We
are
let
they
them
in-
go. What we tell them is that we want them there before the kids arrive, about an hour or so early, so that we can have a orientation session for them.
Mhm.
And we want them, we'll cut them loose about 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Sunday, earlier if all the kids get out of there sooner.
Where do the coaches stay? Are they staying in that same building?
The coaches will stay in the same building. There'll be coaches and, they won't be staying in the same rooms the kids are, obviously, but they'll have rooms on the halls where the kids are. These are high school kids, they bear watching. So we'll have some adults on the same floor.
And I don't know, I just know that RYLA is a great program, but I haven't been involved.
Oh, maybe you ought to be. You want to be a coach?
I would love to, but I can't come for 3 days.
Ah,
But I am thinking, I've got a 21-year-old.
oh, you
I would
do?
like him to be a coach.
Ah, okay.
He's really good with
Are
kids.
they a Rotarian?
He is not.
Need to be a Rotarian.
You need to be a Rotarian. Hmm.
Oh, I didn't know that. Does the the Rotaract Club count?
Not this year. We had a couple of Rotaractors last year, but we're still working on that whole aspect of it. One of the things that these coaches do is, when we started out, we didn't call them coaches, we called them chaperones, because you're dealing with high school kids here. And the idea of a 19-year-old looking after an 18-year-old is not good chaperoning. And so, but there's people that are in favor of that, and we talk about it every year. But for this year, no.
I'd say one of the things my kids talked about the most when they got back. Sorry, Porter. Was that the friends that they made, that they were the only kids from Asheville High that went. And they met people from all the different schools around, and they were just kind of just real excited about all the connections they made from people from all over the area. And I think when they go into that environment without anybody knowing who they are, they can really be themselves.
Yeah.
And I think they both got a lot from that.
Well, yeah,
They
that's the first time a lot of kids will ever be in that situation. And we had a few parents that we had to talk pretty sternly to about that. Making friends is part of what it's all about. You can't bring your buddy with you and stay with that same kid all weekend. That defeats part of the purpose of what we're doing here. And there were some parents that did not readily accept that idea. But that's part of the program. If you're from the same school, we're going to try to separate you to the extent that we can. Put you with some kids you don't know.
Well, thank
So
you very much. All right. Thank you very much. Michelle, are you the one that's from Miami?
Damn.
I
We do
haven't met you.
RYLA down in South Florida too.
Sorry?
We do RYLA in South Florida too.
Oh, I'm from
We actually
Miami
bring
too.
kids from the Bahamas. So you're
Oh,
from Miami?
cool. Yeah, my family lives there. I'm the only one that kind of moved out, but I love going back to visit. But I went to high school there and everything. So
Where'd you go?
To Gulliver.
Gulliver. Okay.
Gulliver, yeah. And sorry, I forgot for a second there. Yeah, they just had their reunion last weekend and I didn't go. But yeah, it's just I heard you were from Miami and I was like, oh, I don't see many people from Miami. So that was nice to see you. So nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Well,
very
I'm
much.
glad you could join
Bye-bye.
us. And this video is going to be posted. I'll let you know where, as soon as I figure out where. And then people that
Make sure
haven't
you
been
leave
able
in
to
the part
see.
about Miami.
What's that?
I know you can
Make sure you leave in the chat about Miami.
Yeah, cut that out.
Sorry.
All right. All right. Well, thank you all
Thank
for
you.
being here.
Thank you.
If any
Thank
questions
you.
come up, just please let me know. And Tanya, I'll see you Monday evening, I hope.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Sharon. Thanks, Michelle.
Bye.
Thanks,
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Michelle.
Bye.